I honestly think that, with the tools and technologies that are out there, we can train on the technicals, but if you have those competencies to problem solve and to investigate, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I feel like you can teach the technical aspect, but you have to have some of those innate skills that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Speed Data, quick conversations with cybersecurity leaders. I'm your host, Megan Garza. I'm here today with Eris Symms, the Chief Information Security Officer at Arconic. Thanks for joining me at RSAC today, Eris.
Thanks for having me.
Eris, you also serve as an adjunct professor at Duquesne University, teaching students about cybersecurity and information security, and you also studied at Carnegie Mellon and Robert Morris. As a career learner who has now taken on teaching, it's clear that education is a passion of yours. What is one thing that you wish cybersecurity professionals knew more about?
One thing that I wish cybersecurity professionals knew, and this is something that I tried to get my students to embrace, is that they have to master communications on top of the technology. Sure, we love computers, we love networks, we love servers, we love threat hunting, but we have customers that we're ultimately doing that work for, people and data that we're trying to protect, and we need to be able to communicate effectively with them. And so, sure, if you can talk about IOCs, TTPs, et cetera, you have to be able to explain that to someone, business leader, an executive, and help them understand what that risk really looks like in their terms.
We love acronyms in cybersecurity, and you have to be able to kind of distill it down to where they understand the business need for cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
And as somebody with more than 20 years in information technology experience, what do you predict to be the biggest shift in cybersecurity?
I've lived through the cloud and the rush to the cloud, and the cloud was going to be great. And I see the same thing happening with generative AI. Machine learning has been around for a long time, and some of our security solutions have leveraged that for years. But seeing generative AI, agentic AI, right now, it still feels like buzzwords. So recognizing that the bad guys are going to start using it. So we need to embrace that. We need to build that into our workflows, into our solutions, and make sure that the defenders that we have the same level of capability.
Yeah. And you talk a little bit about the bad guys who are already using AI. So in your opinion, what is the best way to defend against a cyber attack?
I think the best way to defend against a cyber attack is doubling down on the fundamentals, knowing which systems within your organization are at the highest risk, making sure that you have a good inventory of your hardware, your software, the data that's important to you, having an incident response plan that you've practiced, not just on paper with a walkthrough, but through live exercises like a tabletop exercise, making sure that the business has business continuity plans such that in the event that there is some type of disruption, the business can still operate.
Yeah.
So while the security team is putting out the fire, some level of productivity can still occur, making sure that it's not just IT and just security at the table, making sure that the business is part of that conversation. That way they understand their role.
Yeah. You mentioned incident response plans, being ready for anything. What is the hardest thing about working in cybersecurity?
I think the hardest thing about working in cybersecurity is that it feels like it's never ending. I guess technically it is never ending because there's always new threats, but keeping pace with the bad guys, making sure that the business understands the risks that are relevant to them, keeping the team trained and ready and motivated. In security, it's a thankless job. I think IT has a number of thankless jobs, but I think security in particular, sometimes just a quiet day is a great day, and you don't tend to get a pat on the back for that. And so I think being personally, mentally resilient to everything that's happening around us, I think is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and a quiet day is also a rare day, I feel like, as well. So what other skills, talk about personal resilience, what other skills make security professionals great at what they do?
My mentor told me that you need to have a great sense of humor, right? You can't let this stuff stress you out. I think it's important for someone, especially if they want to get into cybersecurity or they want to see themselves as successful in cybersecurity, having an inquisitive mind, being very curious, being willing to jump into the rabbit hole and figure something out. So a friend of mine uses the phrase dogged tenacity when it comes to chasing down issues and understanding why that occurred. That's super important. And I honestly think that, with the tools and technologies that are out there, we can train on the technicals, but if you have those competencies to problem solve and to investigate, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I feel like you can teach the technical aspect, but you have to have some of those innate skills that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And I always like to ask my guests, if you weren't working in cybersecurity, what would you be doing?
I think that if I wasn't doing this every day, I still like teaching. I like the idea of teaching. I think I would want to do some type of governance work. I think post CISO tenure, I think I want to move into a director role of some sort, supporting a board, and then maybe giving back to the communities that I grew up in that helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on Speed Data.
Yeah. Thanks, Meg.
For our audience, if you're interested in appearing on an episode of Speed Data, please visit varonis.com/speed-data. Thank you, Eris.
Thanks, Megan.